In the story, Greedy Mother, the central theme begins to unfold with the portrayal of a mother whose deep-seated greed becomes the driving force behind her actions. Her desire for wealth, possessions, or status surpasses the natural boundaries of need or comfort. Rather than focusing on the well-being of her family or being content with what she already possesses, her mind is constantly occupied with thoughts of acquiring more. This insatiable hunger for material gain leads her to make choices that gradually distance her from the core values of love, humility, and gratitude. It isn't that she starts off as a cruel or wicked person. On the contrary, she might be shown as someone who initially had genuine concern for her family's future. However, her growing obsession with wealth blinds her to the consequences of her choices, and she slowly begins to justify her actions, believing that everything she does is for the betterment of her loved ones. The mother may begin to engage in behavior that, while not overtly evil, becomes increasingly selfish and manipulative. For instance, she might take advantage of others' kindness, demand more than what is reasonable, or ignore moral boundaries in pursuit of financial gain. In her mind, success is equated with accumulating more, and the idea of enough no longer holds any meaning. The narrative often shows how her greed manifests in everyday decisions, hoarding resources, mistreating those who cannot offer her something in return, or even neglecting her children's emotional needs because her focus is fixed solely on achieving material success. The relationships around her start to deteriorate, not because of a single bad decision, but due to a pattern of selfish choices rooted in greed. As the story progresses, this flaw in her character is contrasted against more grounded or selfless individuals, such as her children, a neighbor, or a relative, who live with honesty, simplicity, and a sense of contentment. Their way of life serves as a silent critique of the mother's behavior, making her actions appear even more unjustified. Despite seeing the happiness and peace others find in less materialistic lives, the mother remains trapped in her cycle of desire, convinced that happiness lies just beyond the next possession or financial success. Her inability to recognize the damage she is doing, to herself and to those she loves, demonstrates how greed can blind even the most caring individuals. Often, her obsession leads her to ignore warning signs. She may disregard her child's emotional struggles, dismiss her spouse's concerns, or betray a close friend in the name of ambition. The emotional distance that grows between her and her family is portrayed subtly but effectively, revealing how greed quietly erodes trust and love over time. What starts as a simple desire to improve her life spirals into a mindset that consumes her, turning a mother, traditionally a symbol of nurturing and sacrifice, into someone driven by selfish motives. This transformation underscores the powerful and corrupting nature of greed, especially when it goes unchecked within the context of family and personal relationships. In the unfolding of the story, the mother's character is marked not only by greed but also by a deep dissatisfaction with her current life, no matter how comfortable or sufficient it may seem to others. Her inability to find peace in what she already has becomes one of her most defining traits. She is surrounded by blessings that many people long for: a loving family, a roof over her head, food on the table, and a stable life, but these things fail to bring her any real joy. Instead, she views them as inadequate, constantly comparing herself with those who appear to have more. This comparison slowly begins to poison her thoughts, as she starts believing that her life is incomplete or unfair simply because others possess greater wealth, better homes, or more luxurious lifestyles. Her mind becomes clouded with the illusion that happiness lies not in what she has but in what she lacks. This dissatisfaction is not momentary, it becomes habitual. Every time she gains something new, the happiness it brings is short-lived. A new piece of jewelry, a gift from a relative, or even a sudden rise in income only satisfies her for a brief moment before she moves on to the next desire. Her heart and mind are never at rest, constantly chasing the next possession or status symbol that she believes will finally make her happy. Unfortunately, that sense of fulfillment never comes. The more she gets, the more she wants. This mindset keeps her trapped in a cycle of longing and disappointment, unable to appreciate the life she already lives. Her days are filled with complaints, not because her circumstances are bad, but because they are not as good as someone else's. The mother's attitude gradually affects her relationships as well. Her dissatisfaction leads her to dismiss the small gestures of love and effort from her family. If her children offer her handmade gifts or express love in simple ways, she may respond with frustration or indifference, thinking that such things have no value compared to material wealth. Her partner may work hard to provide, but she fails to acknowledge the effort, focusing instead on what others have that they don't. In this way, her inability to be content drives a wedge between her and her loved ones. Her emotional focus shifts away from connection and warmth toward resentment and jealousy. She begins to feel that life owes her more and that others are unfairly more fortunate, even if her own life is rich with intangible blessings. The mother also starts to make decisions based on her dissatisfaction. She might begin manipulating situations or making unfair demands, thinking that if she just pushes a little harder, she'll finally get what she wants. She might pressure her children to achieve more, not for their benefit, but to satisfy her own ego and longing for validation. Her dreams are no longer about happiness or love but about appearances and status. She lives in a constant state of emotional hunger, unable to be satisfied, unable to pause and appreciate the moments that truly matter. The impact of the mother's greed does not remain confined to her own life, it slowly begins to affect the people closest to her, especially her children and other family members. As her obsession with wealth and material possessions grows stronger, her priorities shift in ways that deeply influence the emotional environment of the household. What was once a nurturing and warm space begins to feel cold, competitive, and burdened by unrealistic expectations. The mother's constant talk about money, status, and comparison to others becomes a daily routine, and her children start to sense that their worth is being measured not by who they are, but by what they can provide or achieve in material terms. This unspoken pressure weighs heavily on them, sometimes leading to feelings of inadequacy, confusion, or guilt, especially when they are unable to meet her high and ever-changing expectations. In stories like this, the children are often portrayed as innocent and loving, craving their mother's attention, support, and approval. However, because the mother is preoccupied with her own desires and ambitions, she frequently overlooks their emotional needs. She may be physically present, but emotionally absent, detached from their daily lives, inattentive to their problems, and dismissive of their achievements unless they somehow contribute to her idea of success. A child might come home proud of a drawing, a good grade, or a simple act of kindness, only to be met with indifference or criticism for not doing something more useful, or more impressive. Over time, this emotional neglect creates a gap between the mother and her children, a gap that continues to widen as her greed intensifies. Her behavior might also extend beyond emotional impact into more tangible consequences. The mother may start making decisions that directly put her family at risk, financially or socially, in her pursuit of more wealth. For instance, she might borrow money from others to invest in risky schemes or sell important family possessions to chase a promise of quick profit. These decisions, made without proper thought or consideration for the family's future, can cause stress and instability within the home. Arguments may become more frequent, trust may begin to erode, and the sense of unity that once held the family together starts to weaken. The children, caught in the middle of all this, may begin to feel insecure or anxious, unsure of what tomorrow will bring. Moreover, the mother's actions serve as a confusing example for her children. They begin to witness behavior that contradicts the moral lessons they are taught in school or by other role models. They see kindness being replaced by calculation, generosity by selfishness, and gratitude by endless craving. This can create inner conflict as they struggle to understand what values to follow. Some children may try to win their mother's approval by imitating her behavior, believing that success lies in greed and ambition. Others may withdraw emotionally, feeling that nothing they do will ever be enough. The toxic effects of her greed ripple through every aspect of family life, changing the way love, trust, and respect are experienced within the home. In the progression of the story, there comes a significant moment where the mother is forced to confront the consequences of her greed, a turning point that shifts the narrative and brings a new depth to her character. This moment does not arrive suddenly but is built gradually through a series of events that highlight the growing distance between her and her loved ones, the emotional toll of her decisions, and the slow unraveling of the peace she once took for granted. The turning point is often marked by a painful realization or loss that shakes her to the core, breaking through the wall of denial she has built around herself. It could come in the form of a serious argument with her children, the failure of a financial scheme she had blindly trusted, or a moment of vulnerability when she sees someone else living a happy life with far less than she has. This realization begins to open her eyes to the emotional damage her actions have caused. She starts to notice the sadness in her children's eyes, the growing silence at the dinner table, or the way her family now tiptoes around her, afraid to upset her mood. These small but powerful signs begin to speak louder than any words. What once seemed like a justified pursuit of a better life now appears hollow and destructive. The things she once valued, money, jewelry, status, lose their shine when placed beside the emotional distance she feels from her family. In a quiet, reflective moment, she may replay past actions in her mind, recalling times she dismissed her child's affection or ignored the support of a loved one in favor of chasing something material. These memories come rushing back, no longer filtered through the lens of ambition but through the painful clarity of regret. Sometimes, the turning point is triggered by a significant act of kindness or sacrifice from someone she has taken for granted. For instance, her child might give up something precious to comfort her, or a neighbor she once looked down upon might help her during a time of need. These gestures contrast sharply with her own behavior, forcing her to reevaluate her choices and her understanding of what truly matters. In witnessing genuine love, humility, or forgiveness from others, she becomes painfully aware of how far she has drifted from these values. The strength of this emotional contrast plays a key role in awakening her conscience. This awakening is not immediate or complete, but it begins to stir something within her, a sense of guilt, sorrow, and a desire to change. She may try to reach out, mend broken relationships, or express emotions she has long suppressed. For perhaps the first time in a long while, she listens instead of demands, observes instead of judges, and feels instead of suppresses. The world she once saw as a ladder to climb now appears as a fragile web of human connections she has neglected. The realization is heavy, as it carries not just the weight of her mistakes but also the painful awareness of the love and happiness she traded away in her endless pursuit of more. The story presents a powerful moral lesson centered around the destructive nature of greed and the profound importance of values like love, kindness, and gratitude. As the events unfold and the consequences of the mother's actions become clear, the story begins to reveal how a life driven by constant desire can lead not to fulfillment but to emptiness. Greed, in its deceptive nature, convinces people that happiness lies in possessions and external validation. The mother, in her endless pursuit of wealth and status, falls into this trap, believing that material gains will bring her and her family a better life. However, what becomes apparent is that the more she chases after these things, the more distant she becomes from the emotional richness that defines a truly meaningful life. Throughout the narrative, the contrast between material wealth and emotional wealth is shown in different ways. There may be characters who have very little in terms of possessions but live peaceful and joyful lives because they are surrounded by love, compassion, and honesty. On the other hand, the mother, despite acquiring more than what she initially had, finds herself increasingly alone and emotionally unfulfilled. This comparison serves as a subtle but clear message that true happiness cannot be bought or measured in material terms. It must be cultivated through relationships, selflessness, and a heart that knows how to appreciate the present moment. The lesson also highlights the value of gratitude, a quality the mother lacks at the beginning of the story. Her inability to be thankful for what she already has blinds her to the beauty in her life. She overlooks the warmth of her children, the support of her partner, and the comfort of a stable home, always seeking something more, something that she thinks will finally make her life perfect. But perfection, as the story shows, is an illusion when it is based on greed. Gratitude, on the other hand, brings peace and clarity. It helps people see the good in their lives and allows them to enjoy the blessings they have rather than constantly yearning for what they don't. Kindness is another core value emphasized through the story's moral. While the mother's actions are largely centered around self-interest, other characters, often those with less, demonstrate kindness without expecting anything in return. These moments become crucial turning points in the story, as they challenge the mother's worldview and show her that generosity and compassion hold far more power than wealth. Kindness, unlike greed, multiplies as it is given, creating stronger bonds and deeper emotional connections. The contrast between selfishness and generosity further strengthens the moral, making it clear that the richest people are not those who have the most, but those who give the most from their hearts. In exploring the consequences of greed, the story reinforces the idea that love and human connection should never be sacrificed for material gain. The emotional damage caused by selfishness is far greater than any financial loss, and the healing begins only when one returns to values rooted in empathy and humility. As the story nears its resolution, it takes on a deeply emotional tone, creating a heartfelt ending that leaves a lasting impact on the reader or listener. The once greedy and self-centered mother, who allowed her desire for wealth and status to dominate her thoughts and actions, finally comes face to face with the emotional consequences of her choices. This part of the story is often told with a soft, reflective voice, inviting the audience to slow down and feel the emotional weight of everything that has unfolded. The shift in mood is intentional. It moves away from conflict and tension and enters a space of vulnerability, honesty, and emotional reckoning. In this portion of the narrative, the mother may look back at all that she lost in her pursuit of more. Perhaps she reflects on the joyful moments she once took for granted, meals shared with her children, the laughter that once filled the home, or the small acts of love that she brushed aside in her obsession with material success. These memories may now feel distant, like shadows of a life she didn't fully appreciate while she was living it. Her realization is not just intellectual but emotional. She feels the weight of her mistakes in her heart. Her eyes, once focused on external goals, begin to turn inward, and she starts to recognize the emotional needs she ignored, both her own and those of her loved ones. The story may include a powerful moment where the mother breaks down, overwhelmed by guilt, remorse, and longing for the connection she lost. This emotional unraveling is a turning point, not in the sense of dramatic action, but in terms of emotional release. The audience sees her not just as a flawed character, but as a human being, imperfect, yes, but capable of feeling deeply. This vulnerability invites empathy and reminds the audience that transformation often begins with accepting one's own pain. It is through this emotional journey that the story becomes heart-touching. Her tears, her silence, or even her simple gestures of regret all speak louder than words. In many such stories, the family, especially the children, play a crucial role in this emotional climax. Despite all the neglect and disappointment, they may still show forgiveness, proving that love can survive even the deepest wounds. The warmth of a child's hug, the quiet presence of a spouse, or a kind word from someone she hurt may become the emotional anchor that pulls the mother back to what truly matters. These moments are small but powerful. They do not erase the past but open a door to healing and change. The story uses these moments to teach that, although damage was done, the human heart has the capacity for redemption, growth, and reconnection. The emotional tone is further enhanced by the simple, relatable setting, often a humble home, a quiet evening, or a conversation at bedtime, which makes the lessons feel close to real life. The softness of the final scenes contrasts with the earlier intensity, creating a moving sense of emotional closure. The story does not need elaborate drama to touch the heart. It uses the sincerity of emotions, the depth of reflection, and the quiet power of forgiveness to leave a deep and lasting impression.